Have you ever been through a really tough time? Maybe losing a job, dealing with major financial stress, just a period of intense worry? We usually see these things as just bad luck, painful random events we have to get through. But what if they're not random at all? What if they're actually a very sophisticated kind of lesson? A message from a much larger system that's designed specifically for your growth. Well, today we're going to explore a framework that flips that idea on its head, turning hardship from what feels like a bug in the system into a powerful feature.
All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the raw experience of a crisis, the feelings and the facts. Then, we'll introduce this really cool metaphor, the pomegranate principle, to help us reframe it. From there, we'll get into the nitty-gritty, a 7-stage process for actually extracting wisdom from the experience. We'll also talk about your role in the bigger system that makes all this possible. And finally, we'll see how this whole journey leads to a massive upgrade in how you see the world.
Okay, first things first. We have to start where we are. When you're in the middle of a crisis, the feelings are just overwhelming. The consequences are real. This framework doesn't try to deny any of that pain. In fact, that pain, that raw data, is the essential starting point for our entire analysis. So this really gets you thinking, right? When something goes wrong in our life, a job loss, financial trouble, what is actually happening? Is it just a string of unfortunate physical events and the emotional fallout? Or is there something else going on, a deeper layer of meaning that we're just not seeing at first glance?
Look, the anxiety you feel when you lose your job, the very real numbers in your bank account, the stress that keeps you up at night, all of that is real. It's a completely truthful description of what's happening on the surface. And in this framework, we take that whole messy experience and we call it our raw data. It's the unprocessed, unfiltered input that we're about to work with. But, and this is a big but, it is not the final story.
So how do we start processing that raw data? Well, for that, we need a really powerful mental model. And the one we're going to use is called the pomegranate principle. It's all about learning how to separate the tough, bitter outer layers of an experience from the valuable, essential, good stuff that's hidden inside.
And here it is. This is such a brilliant way to think about it. Imagine your crisis is a pomegranate. Now, if you try to eat the whole thing, the tough peel, that bitter pulp, you're just going to have a bad time. The real value isn't in trying to consume the entire fruit as it is. No, the value comes when you know how to press it to get to the juice.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. There's a critical distinction here. The peel, or the husk, is called as-sidq. That means truthfulness. So, saying, I lost my job and I'm worried is a truthful statement. It describes the physical event perfectly, but it's not the ultimate truth. The juice is al-haq, the governance truth. Think of it like this. The peel is the user interface, but the juice is the source code. It's the actual lesson the system is trying to teach you through that crisis.
So the key here is that you can't get from the peel to the juice by just sitting around and hoping for the best. It takes work. It requires an active process, a methodology. This is called al-asr, or the pressing. It is a conscious, deliberate effort to filter out all that emotional pulp and the surface-level story to get to the core governance principle that's waiting at the center of the experience.
Okay, so how exactly do we press the experience? How do we do it? Well, that brings us to a systematic 7-stage protocol. You can think of it like an algorithm or a protocol for a gold mine, a way to turn the raw, messy dirt of a crisis into refined, actionable wisdom.
What's so amazing about this process is that it's modeled on how life itself develops. We start with din, which is like the raw clay of the crisis. Then we move to silala, where we extract the important signal from all the noise. Next is nutfa, where we find that core principle, that little seed of truth. Then we have alaka, where we attach it to the bigger picture. In mudga, we really process it. We chew on the lesson. And finally, we build a new mental structure, or azom, and then give it flesh or lamb by putting it into action in our lives. It's a complete journey from raw material to a fully formed, living wisdom.
And we all start right here, in what's called the tin or clay stage. This is that moment you get the bad news. Everything feels messy, chaotic, all mixed together. The emotions, the facts, your fears, it's all just one big lump of unprocessed data.
The very first and most crucial step is sulala, which means extraction. This is where you consciously hit pause on the panic and ask a different question. You ask, okay, beyond all the noise of my worry, what is the signal here? What is this sudden challenge revealing about my own power, my own assumptions, my true agency in this world? This is the beginning of the pressing. This is where the magic starts.
Now, let's jump ahead for a second. After you extract that signal and process it through the middle stages, you get to the real prize. Stage 6, Izam, or structure. This is the whole point. The lesson you've worked so hard to extract is now used to build a new, stronger cognitive framework for yourself, like an internal bone structure that helps you navigate reality with a much deeper, more resilient understanding of how the system actually works.
So, you might be wondering, why does this process even work? Why should losing a job contain some kind of profound lesson? Well, it's because this framework assumes we are operating inside a massive, pre-existing and coherent governance system. The hardship isn't just random, it's the system itself, calibrating us.
And a huge insight here is to redefine the word deen. Many of us think it just means religion, but in this context, it's much bigger. Think of it as the operational blueprint for reality itself, the established order. It has its own rules, roles, and protocols, kind of like the laws of physics or the code behind an operating system.
A crisis like unemployment forces us to get real about our place in this system. It clarifies our role. We're not the absolute owners of our lives. We're more like stewards or operators. The lack of money acts like a forced ceding of authority, a powerful reminder that we're not ultimately in control. And it shows us that our resources aren't really ours. They are a due or a trust that we're meant to manage properly.
So, let's get to the ultimate payoff of all this work. When you successfully press a hardship and extract its lesson, you don't just feel a bit better. You fundamentally upgrade the entire way you perceive the world around you.
And this is exactly what that upgrade is. The entire process we've been talking about, from the pomegranate to the 7 stages, it's all designed to change your cognitive filter. You are learning to take the chaotic, painful input of a crisis and process it into a coherent, powerful understanding. You are literally installing new software for your mind.
I want you to just sit with this for a second, because this is probably the most powerful reframe of the entire idea. Your hardship isn't a random error. It's not a glitch in the matrix. It's a built-in diagnostic port. It's the system on purpose creating a point of friction to give you an opportunity to plug in, run a check on your own internal operating system, and perform a high-level calibration for your own growth.
That friction, that difficulty, that us, when you actually engage with it using this structured process, it doesn't just go away. It gets converted. It gets transformed into something of permanent, eternal value. Wisdom, resilience, a higher level of cognitive development. You've basically turned lead into gold.
And that leaves us with one final thought to take away with you. Think about the challenges you're facing in your own life right now, whether they're big or small. What if they aren't just problems you have to endure? What if they're pomegranates, full of juice just waiting for you? What husk in your life is waiting to be pressed?